Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you're situated on this great, big, beautiful blue globe floating through the void of Yah's creation. It is the 2nd of September, 2025. It's Taco Tuesday, and as always, holding the legacy mainstream media feet to the fire because they gaslight, they manipulate, they propagandize, they lie, and guess what, campers?
You won't be trusted anymore.
Yeah, I wrote that song 30 flaming years ago. Yeah, I've been screaming about the fake news for all these years, you know, and people said, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Oh, you just hate yourself. And you... All right, well, if that's what you're thinking, just raise your hand and then slap yourself with it. Where do you even start today? I mean, there's no joy in I told you so for either party. That's what it comes down to, folks. And, you know, we conspiracy theorists, I mean, we're batting 1,000 these days. We're batting 1,000, and for the life of me, I don't understand why the dumbhead nong-nongs won't stop and just take a look. Just think, you know? Use that gray matter strategically placed between your ears, you know, put 2 and 2 together and actually come up with the correct answer. It's not hard, folks. It's not hard to think outside of the cage. Outside of the box. No, outside of the cage. You can break out of a box, but a cage is a different story. And yes, the bars and the gates and the locked walls of thought are imposed upon every human being that watches the mainstream legacy news. Now, yeah, they do put out, you know, a bunch of accurate information. It's the old 80-20 principle. They put out 80% good information, but then they pollute it with 20% bad that basically negates all the 80% good. And that's just the way it is. Now, I'm sorry, folks, but I'm watching what's going on. I hope you had, first of all, I hope you had a safe weekend. Now, I'm watching what's gone on in Chicago over this past weekend. The latest count is that 8 people are dead and over 50 people have been shot. Okay, and meanwhile, the mayor of Chicago is saying, we don't want any help. We don't need any National Guard troops. We don't need anybody coming here. We can handle this ourselves. Oh, really? You've done such a great job. You know, and I don't understand how the libtards can stand for this. There's only one reason. Orange man bad. That's it. What are you going to do when you know, at the end of President Trump's term? You don't have anything going for you other than orange man bad. Trump did it. It's Trump's fault. It's all the Republicans. It's all the MAGA people. It's all the Trump-tards. What are you going to do when Trump is out of there? You don't have anything. Anyway, I don't know. I'm just a little frustrated here because I've seen this coming for a long time. And I know some of the regular listeners to this broadcast have seen it coming for a long time too. But anyway, let me see. Where do I get started? I see this as a big test of humanity. I really do. I mean, if we look at what's going on all over the world right now, everything is upside down. Everything has gone absolutely bat crap crazy, and people don't have the testicular fortitude to stand up for themselves. Well, some of them do, but they're labeled conspiracy theorists, and, you know, you hate your country, and what? Smack, bang. I'm telling you, folks, this is a test of humanity. And if God is testing us, we are failing miserably. We should be ashamed of ourselves. We really should. And I'm not trying to make you feel bad or anything like that, but I don't care who you are, what walk of life it is, what your political affiliation is. I don't care what your religion is. I don't care what it is. But it seems that the humanity is gone. It's gone. A few examples, okay? Right now in the UK, they shut down the streets 5 times a day for prayer, you know, because the Muslim population is completely overwhelming the English population. And I'll get to some of the other countries shortly, but what's going on in the UK is absolutely insane. You know, when you've got a little old lady standing outside of a church, and she's a Christian, she's outside of a church, and she's praying silently. and she gets arrested. But yet the Muslims can shut down London 5 times a day, get in the middle of the street, put out their prayer mats, and pray. They get down, but that's okay. That's okay, yeah. Okay? And then, meanwhile, they've got rape gangs going around and picking up, young girls and, graping them. And they get off scot-free, and anybody who tries to report it or stop it, they're the ones that get arrested. This is nuts. And you know what else is crazy over there in the UK? They have their national flag. And you know what? You can't fly it anymore. No. If you put up the national flag, you get arrested. Well, luckily, there is some resistance. All of a sudden, people are putting up all their national flags all over the place. But this is how crazy things have gotten. It's all being orchestrated. Now, that's just going on in the UK. Okay? We can take a look at what's going on in France, in Germany, in Italy. They're being replaced. And you look at the birth rates of those cultures. Now, in order to maintain a population, you have to have a 2.2 replacement rate. You have to have 2.2 kids. Well, a lot of these countries have fallen way below that. There's a certain level, I think it's 1.3, where it is irreversible. And some of these countries are down to 1.2. So it's only a matter of time now before all of Europe falls. Now, is the same thing happening here? Something you don't want to think about, right? Something you don't want to take a look at that. What's going on in Dearborn, Michigan? What's going on in, Epic City, Texas? This is going on all over the country. And you can't say anything against that because that means you're an Islamophobe or you're a racist or something like that. I'm telling you, folks, they are generating a holy war. They want the Muslims versus the Christians, and the Jews are out there too. A lot of people are looking what's going on in Israel and with the Gaza Strip and everything, and a lot of the Jews here in this country are standing up against it. But unfortunately, with the limited knowledge that most Americans have, they can't separate Judaism from Zionism. They don't understand. And that's, what's that? What was it? That quote from the Bible? My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Now, I don't mean to be on a soap opera here, but unfortunately, there's so much fecal matter is hitting the air circulator right now, and people are being shamed. As a matter of fact, there's a program in New York. You want to talk about how to generate racism, how to create animosity and hatred from one group to another. Well, guess what? There's something in New York now that they call Affinity Groups, and it's not just going on in New York. Yeah, this is what they're doing to our to our kids. It's unforgivable. This is not the country that I grew up in. Listen to this, and it was reported in the New York Post, and somebody posted a little synopsis. Here's what an affinity group is.
Several schools in New York have implemented what they describe as a novel approach to fighting discrimination. Under the program, children as young as 6 are separated by race into 2 rooms named affinity groups. One room for the white students, the other for non-whites. In the room of non-whites, the students are heaped with praise, told to feel proud of their race and given treats such as cupcakes. But as for the white students, they are scolded, told about their white privilege, about America's history of racism, and of course no treats are awarded to these children. Parents have claimed that this program deliberately instills in white children a strong sense of guilt about their race. Some kids come home in tears saying, "I'm a bad person." A parent noted, 100% of the curriculum is what whites have done to other races. Parents, moreover, say the classroom segregation only breeds resentment. Younger children, for instance, feel left out when the kids of colour come back to the main classroom munching on cupcakes they were given in their affinity group. The program is run by Anshu Wahi, who's held the title of Director of Diversity at Bank Street since 2013.
The Director of Diversity. Thank you so much. There we are. DEI, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And I've been screaming about that since they first started throwing this at us in the mainstream media. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Martin Luther King Jr. is spinning in his grave. You remember, he said that we should judge people by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. But that doesn't gel with DEI. Of course, they don't want to admit that. They want to say, okay, we all have to go along to get along. Let's all join hands and sing Kumbaya. And yet they're throwing these programs together, these affinity groups that are serving no other purpose than to create racial division, animosity, hatred, white loathing. Okay? I don't know. By the way, the phone number here, if you want to call in, help me out on this one, okay? 215-867-8255. That's 215-867-8255. The line is open right now, so if you want to call in, I'll put you right in there. Now, in the meantime, like I'm saying, they're creating all this division. They're creating, racial division, their class division, ethnic division, you name it. Because divided we fall. And it's being done deliberately. This is on purpose. And unfortunately, oh, come on, Dave, that's a conspiracy theory. They wouldn't do that. Of course they would do that. That's the way they maintain control. As a matter of fact, there's a social media influencer, I guess you could call him, Eric Warsaw. And he was discussing the difference between civil war and revolution. And this is important because one or the other is going to happen. One or the other. We're reaching a boiling point in this country. But give a listen to this. This is a good analogy. Here's Eric Warsaw.
I think we might be headed towards a revolution. And really, if they feared the public, they probably wouldn't have done this shit in the first place, man.
Right.
And I'm using the word revolution instead of civil war because civil war is the country divides in half and half the people fight half the people. It's horizontal, And I want to avoid civil war because whoever wins, the Zios are on top. They're going to control both sides. But if it's a revolutionary war, it's not horizontal. It's vertical. It's the people versus the government. And so we want a revolutionary war, not a civil war. But is a revolutionary war coming? Something extreme is going to come because these people are not peacefully going to give up their power, their money, their positions. That's the sad truth. And now here's another thing is if the current course that we're headed on, peaceful protesting, and if it continues that way, they maintain power. Like the status quo favors them. Whatever happens has to be able to remove them from power. Mm-hmm. And so they know that. They know like it might slowly just go away if we keep on ignoring it. Time is a little bit on their side unless something big happens. But right now, unless we start stepping up our game, they're going to stay in power. They're going to maintain power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's absolutely right. So again, a civil war is horizontal. It's right versus left or red versus blue, okay? They don't care. Powers that be don't care about that. They would just as soon have you blow each other up. Go ahead, fight amongst yourselves. Put your pinky to the side of your mouth. That's where they're coming from. They want civil war. They want to eliminate a huge number of the population. We'll get to some of the genocide in a couple minutes here. But then, they want people to basically take themselves out. But, as far as revolution, okay, now civil war is horizontal, right versus left. A revolution is vertical. It's from the bottom to the top. Now, as long as we keep to our protests and our demonstrations and everything, they don't give a horse hockey about that. They don't. Go ahead, have your demonstrations. Go ahead, burn some cars, burn down some businesses. Go ahead, yeah, no problem. No problem. Go ahead and do that. Go stand outside your Capitol building and bang your pots and pans and wave your flags and show your banners. And after you're done, you'll go home, and then the maintenance crew will get time and a half for cleaning up the mess. They don't care about your protests. What they do care about is if you actually do something. They're not going to give up their seats of power like they were saying. They're not going to give up their power. They're not going to give up their money. They're not going to give up their affluence and their prestige and all that stuff. No, that's what they live for. They are supremely materialistic. So, I mean, they're not going to give that up. It just isn't going to happen. So, well, unfortunately, and I'm not here to advocate anybody doing anything. That's going to be up to the people out there to decide what they're going to do. But the powers that be, they only understand one thing, and that's brute force. That's what it comes down to. They're not going to change their minds. They're not going to kowtow to the constituency. I mean, right now, look what's going on. The overwhelming majority of the American people are against what's going on in Israel. They're against this genocide, this forced starvation, the murder, the torture of all these Palestinians. And let's not even get into the issue of whether or not they're Muslims or not. That's got nothing to do with it. We're talking about humanity. And that's why I said on the outset, if this is a test for all this entire globe of people, we are failing miserably. No human being should have to be put through that. So the point is that the overwhelming majority of Americans, and I don't care if they're Republicrats or Demopublicans, the overwhelming majority of people are against what's going on over there in Israel. And yet, your elected officials, you're supposed to represent the people. The people say stop doing it, and your elected officials throw you the middle finger and say, I don't care what you say. I'm getting paid off from AIPAC, and I'm getting kickbacks from Northrop Grumman and from Halliburton and from Boeing and from all the other companies that deal with the military-industrial complex, raking in billions, hundreds of trillions of dollars. They don't give a flying flip-off about what you think. They want their money. They want to stay in power. These are the people who are in charge of our country right now. And nothing will change as long as we continue to go out and sing Kumbaya. It ain't gonna change, folks. Okay, let me see. I'm a little bit exasperated here. Going back to what's going on in Chicago. Okay, this past weekend, Labor Day weekend, what a mess is going on in Chicago. And of course, the mayor is there saying, I'm forbidding it. I will not allow our police to cooperate with any of the federal officers coming in here. Great. You won't even listen to your constituency. I saw some people coming up to the podium in a town hall meeting last week, and not one of them was supportive of the mayor. They're all screaming the same thing. They're saying our streets are a mess. Our kids are being shot on their way to school. You know, the inner city is falling apart. The infrastructure is gone. And you have the unmitigated gall to stand here in front of it and say, okay, things are fine. We got control of the situation. No, you don't. But that's just one. I mean, that's just Chicago, folks. Around the rest of the country, it's the same deal. And I mean, out in California, have you looked at that? What a mess California is? And Gavin Newsom is actually considering making a run for the presidency in 2028. And the sad thing is that most people don't even realize it. The voting booths are all corrupted. We all know that. I mean, how else do you think that Nancy Pelosi and Gavin Newsom and Adam Schiff and all these other, they keep getting elected and reelected 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 and they keep getting in there. How do they keep getting in there? Because the voting booths are corrupt. Anyway, oh gosh, what a mess we got going here. Now, I'm going to change gears a little bit. A few months ago, I was watching an interview with Sean Ryan and a guy named Eric Decker. Now, Eric Decker was working for Raytheon, and he had a top security clearance, tippity top of the iceberg security clearance, and he was down in Antarctica. Yeah. And he had access to all the facilities down there. And he found that there was a facility that was basically the technology down there. I mean, they got stuff going on down in Antarctica that we can't even imagine. All right? But they got a technology down there. It's sort of like HARP upside down. HARP, we've all heard about the HARP project, the antenna arrays, and it's not just up in Alaska. They got them all over the world now, where they can shoot millions of watts of power up into the atmosphere and control and direct the air currents and the airstream and all that type of stuff. So we've been hearing about that for decades and decades. I remember when Nick Begich first came out with his book, Angels Don't Play This Harp. That was back in the, early 2000s, I guess it was. But so we all know about HARP. But there's a technology that is, like I said, it's sort of like an upside-down HARP technology. So instead of having antennas sticking up into the air, shooting all this power into the atmosphere and the ionosphere, they have a technology where instead of having antennas going up, they've got rods going down into the ground. All right, and they got a whole bunch of these things, and it's all wired into a big system. And when they flip it on, when they turn it on, they can direct the tectonic powers. Yeah, which means earthquakes. Now, again, this isn't me. This is Eric Decker that was talking about this. He said back in 2011, when they first started to try this thing out, they figured, okay, well, let's throw some energy out into the South Pacific. So they flipped the thing on, and what do you know? They created an earthquake off the coast of New Zealand. Oops. Oh dear. Yeah, I guess this thing works. Yeah. So if they have an earthquake machine, do you think they're going to use this for good, or do you think they'll use it for evil? It's sort of like the same question that we would ask if they can control the weather. If they could control the weather, would they give us good weather, or would they give us bad weather? Well, let's think about it. If they could control the weather, and I'm saying if, we know that they do, but I'm just saying, if they can control the weather, and if they could stop the hurricanes and the tornadoes and the tsunamis and all this other stuff, okay, if they could give all of the farmers good weather, and they could have abundant crops, yeah, lots of everything, lots of corn, lots of wheat, lots of fruit, lots of veg, what would happen to the price of these commodities? They would go down. Do you think that's going to be good for their pockets? No. And if they could stop all of the bad weather and stuff like that, like hurricanes, think about all of the insurance companies. Think about all of the businesses when you have to go and rebuild, all the carpenters, all the plumbers, all the electricians, all the suppliers of plywood and 2x4s and all the stuff that goes into rebuilding. Think about all that money. If they didn't have to rebuild, what do you suppose would happen to that economy? Right. So they don't give a crap about whether you're going to survive a storm. They want those storms. This is like a no-brainer, folks. And so this whole thing about these earthquakes, I don't know if you've noticed, but I've been looking at the geological survey, the maps of the world where you can track on the past month on how many earthquakes have been going on around the world. Are you familiar with the Ring of Fire? Yeah, the Ring of Fire goes all the way around the world. If you start in California, work your way up the coast and off the coast of Alaska, the Aleutian Islands, and then back down through Japan and down through, Indonesia, and it goes all the way around the world. And you look at the map of the earth and you could see all these earthquakes. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of earthquakes going on all over the world right now. And of course, a lot of people are concerned of what's been going on. Mount Rainier, Washington State, they've had hundreds of little minor earthquakes, lots of rumblings going on around Mount Rainier. Remember Mount St. Helens back in 1980? Yeah. Well, what's really interesting when you look at this Ring of Fire and you see all the little dots where all these earthquakes are, what's really interesting is the lack of dots along the west coast of the United States. Things have been strangely quiet over there for the past month. There was one that was off the coast of Oregon, and that's still going on. They're saying, hey, that's kind of interesting, but that's off the coast of, it's like 100 miles off the coast. But a lot of people right now are concerned about Yellowstone. And then you have to also take into consideration, the lunar cycle, because the gravitation of the moon has a lot to do with it. I mean, it moves the entire world water systems, the oceans. That's why we have high tides and low tides. So, I mean, you put that together, then you take a look at the solar activity, the solar radiation, the stuff that's going on. And there was one guy, now I don't know if this is, something that we really need to pay attention to, but there was a guy that posted over this past weekend. He's been looking at all the indications, and he was scared to death. And, again, I'm not trying to scare you or anything, but I would be remiss if I didn't at least share this with you. This is how he feels about, whether or not we're going to see some seismic activity here. Listen up to this.
If you live in the Pacific Northwest, Nevada, or anywhere on the Ring of Fire, this could save your life. I'm about to show you something that seismic agencies won't tell you. I've been tracking earthquake patterns using the same mathematical sequence that predicts volcanic eruptions, and the numbers are screaming danger. Mount Rainier has been swarm quaking since July 8th. That's 56 days. The Fibonacci sequence says day 55 is critical. We're there right now. Nevada just had a 4.7 magnitude with dozens of aftershocks. The mathematical pattern says larger quakes follow exactly 27 days after solar flares. August had massive solar activity. September 8th through the 15th, that's this week. The mathematical probability spikes for the Pacific Northwest. The same equation that predicts the daily volcanic count to within 95% accuracy, that's the same equations. September 27th to the 30th are global earthquake enhancement windows. The sun's electromagnetic field creates a 27-day lag effect that triggers seismic activity. I'm not trying to cause panic. I'm trying to save lives. If you're in Washington, Oregon, Northern California, Nevada, or anywhere seismically active, check your emergency kits, have water, know your safe spots. The mathematics don't lie, and they're pointing to the next 2 weeks. The same pattern predicts Iceland's 12 eruptions perfectly, Kilauea's weekly episodes exactly. Even NASA tracks these solar correlations now. Share this with anyone in the earthquake zones. The math says be ready. Please stay safe.
Boy, he's pretty shaken up, wouldn't you say? Now, I don't know whether he's just, an alarmist or whether he's just making a mountain out of a molehill. But I can't help but look, and I've been, questioning this for the past several weeks. I mean, we saw, what was it, last month, people were posting videos that were taken in and around Yellowstone and as far away as Denver, Colorado, of all these animals that are strangely migrating, and they're traveling in huge groups, like grizzly bears. Grizzly bears don't hang out with each other. They fight each other. But when you see a video of a whole line of traffic at Yellowstone, and you see like 15 to 20 grizzly bears all moving in the same direction, not fighting each other, trying to get out. And then there's other people who have posted videos of bison, of buffalo, of mountain lions, of elk. There was a huge herd of elk that was moving through Denver, Colorado. Now, why are all these animals moving around? And then there was somebody else that was posting. They were in a plane, and they were flying over the Pacific Ocean off the coast, heading south. And they happened to notice down below that there were huge schools, I don't know if you can call it a school, of dolphins and killer whales all moving south. Now, what's going on? There's so much stuff that's going on. Like I said, humanity, you've got to get in touch with yourself. You've got to understand that you're in a meat suit. And we're here for a reason. We're here to learn something. We're here to elevate our souls and our consciousness, if you will. And if we don't get that, if we get stuck in this matrix and on all the distractions of pro sports and movies and American Idol and Ninja Warrior and all the stuff that's going on in our lives with our work situation and our home life situation, all this stuff is basically to take you away from being centered and being focused. And I hate to say it, I'm not trying to be esoteric here, but I mean, we have to get back in touch with the source. We have to, if you want, whatever you want to call it, you could say, get in touch with God. And I've mentioned that before. You know, people need to go and look at themselves in the mirror and look behind the eyes. Understand that it's sort of like, I've said this before, what kind of car are you driving? If you're driving, say a Toyota RAV4, does that mean you are a Toyota RAV4? Of course not. You're just occupying that vehicle. Well, that's the way it is with your body. You just happen to be operating this particular body, this particular meat suit that you're wearing. It could be tall, could be short, could be fat, could be skinny, could have black hair, blonde hair, brown eyes, black eyes, blue eyes. You know, you're just driving a meat suit. You know, and there's some people out there, very handsome men, very gorgeous women. You know, I mean, I've met some women that are absolutely drop dead gorgeous, like a Maserati, but they're a crappy driver. You know, that's what it comes down to. I'd rather be in a VW Bug with a good driver than a Rolls Royce with somebody who doesn't know how to make a legal turn. You know, I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but there's so much that's going on. It's right in our faces, folks, and we got to be able to face it. Anyway, getting back to this issue with Gaza and how things are so upside down, so crazy. I mean, let me see. Omar Badar was actually on CNN. Now, keep in mind, folks, that the mainstream media has done everything they can to prevent you from saying the G word, which is genocide. They don't want to admit that that's what's going on over there in the Gaza Strip. That's because if your elected officials lose support, and actually at this point they don't even care because they know you're not going to do anything. The bottom line here is that Omar Badar was on CNN actually discussing genocide. Listen to this.
If you look at the statements of Israeli officials at the beginning of this campaign, you look at the bragging of Israeli soldiers on social media about what they're doing in Gaza, it is difficult to reach any other conclusion apart from the fact that Israel is systematically destroying Palestinian life in Gaza. You look at every metric. How many journalists are being killed is unprecedented. You look at how many children have actually been killed in the process. And worst of all, just one thing that I think is really important to point out here is the fact that this is the first live stream genocide. So when you hear Save the Children talk about how there are 10 Palestinian children every single day who are requiring amputations to their arms and legs because of Israeli bombardment, or when you hear Western doctors visit Gaza and talk about how Palestinian children are being used as target practice by Israeli soldiers, you can literally see footage of that on your phone every single day, a fresh crop of Palestinian children whose bodies are being shredded. And the fact that we've allowed this to continue for as long as we have is absolutely insane. It is time to bring that genocide to an end.
So given this declaration, what is there to do? What is there for the United Nations, for example, to do now?
The United States is blocking any potential solution and intervention here because the U.S. uses all of its military leverage, giving Israel unlimited military funding practically in the tens of billions of dollars to carry out this campaign, and intervenes at the UN Security Council to veto any attempt to hold Israel accountable at the UN Security Council. And it really is time for the rest of the world to step in, to apply meaningful sanctions on Israel, to isolate Israel diplomatically and militarily and economically until this genocide comes to an end. It should be the United States stepping in to take that action, but given the fact of how incredibly biased the Trump administration has been and how utterly dismissive it is of Palestinian humanity and human rights, it really is time for the rest of the world to act.
Yes, it is up to the rest of the world to react because, unfortunately, our entire United States government has been taken over. This is no longer the United States of America. It is the United States of Israel. And until the American people stand up and actually do something. Now, I'm talking about, I already talked about your protests and demonstrations. They don't care. They don't care. You could do anything you want, but they don't care. Now, there are more and more people that are speaking out against this. Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks has been, you remember those three words I've been screaming about for, 2 years now? What are those words?
Bribery, coercion, blackmail.
Yeah, we've even got a t-shirt. If you go to our website, TheWTFReports.com, and scroll down, we got some merch down there, and one of them is a t-shirt with those three words. Bribery, coercion, blackmail. I've been screaming it for months and months, couple of years now. Well, you know what? Anna Kasparian is starting to get on board with that, too.
But with a bitch like me, I'm not going to shut my mouth, and I'm not going to be intimidated. As an American who's protected by the First Amendment, who is tasked with doing a job that requires me to dig in, not get scared and run away, like a little bitch, right? I'm the kind of bitch that likes to dig in, and I'm not going to be intimidated by someone who has far more concern with a foreign country as opposed to our country here in America. I'm an American. I'm going to look out for America.
Yeah.
Israel controls the United States.
Right.
And I meant it. How are you going to argue otherwise? Okay, almost every single lawmaker on the left or right does the bidding of the Israeli government.
Why?
Either because they are legally bribed by AIPAC.
Ooh, what's that first word? Bribery.
Or they're afraid that AIPAC is going to target them.
That could be coercion.
In some political campaign, so they don't win re-election. I believe there's also a possibility of a blackmail operation.
Blackmail. There they are. Bribery, coercion, blackmail. Thank you, Anna Kasparian, for echoing those three words.
But, yeah, I mean, we do anything and everything Israel wants. Why are the United States taxpayers tasked with paying for the bombs and the military of a foreign government when that foreign government had an economic surplus in 2021? Yeah. The United States hasn't had an economic surplus since 2001. So yeah, our government is controlled by Israel. And I do not apologize for saying that.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And this whole thing about, what happened last week at the Nasser hospital, where there were journalists that were up in the balcony because they had to get up high enough to be able to get their signal out so that they could do their reporting. And what did Israel do? They did what you call a double tap. They slam a missile into the building, a bunch of people get killed, and then the rescue workers and the journalists run in there to see if they can't pull out the survivors and retrieve the dead. And while they're in there trying to help people, the second missile comes in 15 minutes later and takes them all out. So now all the journalists are dead. I saw an interesting statistic over the weekend. If you take all the journalists who were killed from World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the war in Afghanistan, and there were a couple of other conflicts there that were in this list. I don't have it in front of me. But you take all the journalists that were killed in all those wars, and it still doesn't come up to how many journalists have been killed in the past, 20 months in the Gaza Strip. That's because Israel does not want the world to see what they're doing. And now they're right in the middle of their final phase. They just brought in 60,000 troops and a bunch of tanks, and they're going to go in and, quote unquote, finish the job. So what do you suppose is going on over there in the Gaza Strip right now as I'm speaking? What do you suppose is going on in there? We don't know because there's no journalists there. They took out all the journalists from Al Jazeera. They've taken out all of the Reuters reporters, all the Associated Press reporters, and of course the independent reporters. They're all gone. I don't know of any that are in there right now. I suppose I could get on to Al Jazeera and check to see what they've got any recent reports. But they've taken out all the journalists so they can go in there. They could be just machine gunning every man, woman, and child as we speak right now. They could be just taking the tanks and blowing up all the whatever tent cities are left. They could be burning people alive. We'll never know. We'll never know. And meanwhile, the United States keeps on sending that money. Yeah, sending those bombs and those tanks and those jets and all the other weapons of war. Shik-shing, shik-shing, shik-shing. You ever stop and think how many hundreds of trillions of dollars that have been spent towards building weapons of war? What would this world be like if instead of building those weapons, we were building infrastructure? What do you suppose would happen if they were to release all of the suppressed technologies that would solve the energy problems? Give us a clean world. I mean, what would happen of all those trillions of dollars if we were to actually put them towards solving the health problems in this world? They don't want that, folks. They want complete and total control. As a matter of fact, there's a goal of lowering the population in any way that they can. And I was going to get to something here, but this is kind of interesting. This is somewhat unrelated, but I'll get back to this whole thing about population control, or shall I say population reduction, drastic reduction. But we have so many double standards that are going on here. Listen to this. There's a guy whose girlfriend got pregnant, and he slipped her some abortion pills. And, here, listen to this little report. This is something to noodle on. Listen to this.
So a man in Illinois just got charged with homicide for slipping his girlfriend abortion pills. Hold on, wait, let me check something. Yeah, that's what I thought I was going to see in Illinois. They can have abortions without restriction. No restrictions. Shit, even health insurance has to pay for it. And no, you don't need the parents' consent. How are you charging them with homicide? Because if you're allowing abortion, that would mean that you do not believe that's a human life. Otherwise, you'd be saying it's okay to take another human's life, right? Like, we wouldn't be doing that, right? Like, Illinois wouldn't do that, right? I mean, because they allow abortions without restrictions. And if it was a human life, I mean, that would be murder. That would be homicide. But if you slip your girlfriend abortion pills, that's homicide. I'm going to tell you right now, this is going to be a very interesting court case. Because I would imagine he's going to argue that the state doesn't see it as murder. That the state doesn't see it as homicide. Because if they did, that would mean that the state allows the murder of children without restriction. And I mean, state wouldn't do that, right? So yeah, I will be watching this case because this is going to be must-see TV.
Yes, it is. You want to talk about a clown world. You know, they have laws, you know, if let's say that there's a pregnant woman who gets shot in some school, you know, some drive-by shooting or a robbery or something like that. And the person who shot her, and she's pregnant, and the baby dies, he gets charged with a double homicide. They recognize the baby as a human being, and they say it's double homicide. However, the same courts will say that a fetus is just a clump of cells. So this is why I'm saying, you know, we got some crazy stuff going on in this world.
So a man.
So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. And let me see, I'm having a little bit of an audio problem here in my headphones. Let me see what's going on here. Okay, I got that solved. All right, I just wanted to share that with you. Now, as far as, you know, this issue about sorry about that. About this issue, you know, about, you know, population reduction. You know, they're trying anything and everything they can. They're throwing at us all these different issues, you know, to prevent people from being born. And of course, you know, gays don't have kids. Trans people don't have kids. And of course, that's all in the headlines right now because, of course, this shooting that happened and this trans person called himself Robin, but he was born Robert. And then there's all the people out there doing research and saying, wait a second, let's look back at the past, you know, 10 mass shootings. They're all trans people. They're either trans or fluid gender. And yet we still have people out there, like this senator from Nebraska. She went up to speak. You want to talk about how these people are so analytical and so logical. Here is her logical explanation about the trans people.
We need trans people. We love trans people. Trans people belong here. We need trans people. We love trans people. Trans people belong here. We need trans people. We love
This is a senator from Nebraska.
We need trans people. We love trans people. Trans people belong here. We need trans people. We love trans people.
This is an elected official.
You matter. And I am fighting for you. And I will not stop. I will not stop today. I will not stop.
Oh my gosh. You want to talk about insanity. You know, they say that so many of the liberals out there, they work off of emotions instead of facts and logic. That's a perfect example right there. Okay, we have a caller on the line. Let's go to the phones. I mean, this is just crazy.
my jaw dropped, my eyeballs popped out.
Who's that?
I mean, we know this is happening, but to hear it, we're like, and we closed the mental institutions.
Yeah. I'm
like, seriously. But I wanted to also, David, I can relate to. Oh no, of course somebody has to call in. I'm gonna get rid of him.
Oh, what happened? Where'd you go? Okay. Ha! Okay. She just wanted to call in and say this is a riot. Yeah, I know. It's a clown show. It is insane. Absolutely insane. And let me see if I can pull this up. There was one thing that I had. It was a clip from a television series back in, it was 2012 or 2013 or something. Let me see if I can find it. Let's see. I think this is it here. Yeah, listen to this. This is nuts. Oh, okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's go back to the phone. Okay.
Sorry.
Did you disconnected? You hung up on me.
I know. Okay, my bad. Technical difficulty. This is getting almost incomprehensible. Like, well, my mind cannot keep up with it. I'm like, wait a second. I mean, you've got people coming out that were trafficked, that were with all the mind control, with all the global Satanists.
Yeah.
You've got those people coming out and connecting the dots. And then you've got, which gods, I believe, and they believe, are saved them from inevitable death.
Mm-hmm.
But to bring this out, you cannot look at this any other way than the last days, in my view. Okay, that's one. But secondly, and the ironic, the sick irony is that all those technologies that they stole and murdered for,
mm-hmm.
like you mentioned, to be used for us, they're not only gaining and this greed and selfish power and all that, but they're using it against us. I mean, when you've got, you start. Remember we talked about you start connecting the dots. Well, what's scary is that these dots are connecting so densely that it is suffocating us.
Mm-hmm.
What scares me to the point where, and for this very reason that they can weather control and the new weapons,
Yeah.
That we're being suffocated to the point. Well, we're the frog. The majority of the American population are the frogs. Go what? I've got my Netflix, like you said. But when I hear the Palantir, thank you, Trump. What the heck is going on with that? Like what?
Yeah.
Like just, I feel like he fed us to the wolves. Really with that one.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, maybe there's more to it. You always try. I hear you try to have the positive. Keep your enemies closer. We'll see. But is that I just heard Palantir say that the question was asked about God.
Mm-hmm.
He dodged that. He doesn't believe that God is in power or creates history, or controls history. But he's using clearly in this interview the world, the global warming, that whole thing,
mm-hmm.
to have the new world order. Like he's going to mess it all up, so we're all terrified and dead, and trying to survive, and then go, oh, here's a system. We'll give you money. We'll give you shelter. Of course, the 5-minute cities. But you see the horrible irony of this. They're using the technology they stole, not just for the profit, but against us. So I rest my point on that.
Well, that's exactly right. Every time they come up with some sort of a new technology or something, the first thing they do is figure out how to weaponize it. Whenever there's, something that could benefit humanity, no, we can't have that. We have to figure out how to destroy humanity. And this is their mindset.
I think they figured it out a long time ago. But I'm realizing the long-term plan. They've had the technology. I mean, I don't even trust if there's UFOs. I do believe in UFOs. I believe in whatever. Clearly, there's got to be civilizations that are smarter than us.
Well, that's a whole nother conversation.
I know, but my point is that technology also they can use against us. Like, oh, we're being invaded. Let's get taken care of by the government. So I'll shut up and let you finish your show.
Okay, Cynthia, thank you for the call. I appreciate it.
Carolyn.
Oh, Carolyn. Okay, I got you mixed up with Cynthia. Okay, yeah, I got you. I see it.
Thank you.
All right, Carolyn. Bye-bye. Well, she's absolutely right. I mean, and again, we go full cycle here. We have to decide whether we're going to stand in the light or hide in the darkness. There's either good or evil. And, I've said many, many times, we all know that good people don't lust for money and power. So the common sense question is, who ends up with all the money and power? Bad people, because they lust for it. That's what they live for. Remember that old saying, he who dies with the most stuff wins? No. He who dies with the most stuff missed the point. That's not why we're here. But unfortunately, we've had it pounded into our heads since we were born that the road to success has to do with how much stuff you've got, how much money you've got, how much prestige you've got, what your reputation is. Those are all the things that determine your self-worth. Isn't that true? Well, I'm here to say no, that's not true. You come into this world naked, you're going to go out naked. And as far as I'm concerned, that final scene in the movie Ghost, when Patrick Swayze turns back and he looks at Demi Moore, and, the light is off behind him, and they're saying, hey, Sam, they're waiting for you. And he turns back to Demi Moore and he says, all the love, you get to take that with you. And he's right. And that was echoed, on the Beatles album, Abbey Road. Remember that last line? And in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. I believe that. I've been standing by that all my life. That's something that stuck with me. And you know what? I believe it with every part of my being. And that's, that's the only reason that I can figure out that why we're here. Because when you go, when it's time for you to vacate this meat suit, the only thing you get to take is the love that you've shared and the love that you've received. Because that is the light. I'm sorry, my God is a God of love. And I know a lot of you feel the same way. But unfortunately, we don't act that way. We don't live that way. We're not required to even, tick that box. Because this world is not focused on those type of values. I don't know. I don't mean to go off on some moral, rant here. But that's just the way I see it. And unfortunately, most of humanity has lost sight of that. That's why on the outset of this broadcast, I said, ladies and gentlemen, we are all here and we're being tested. And if that's true, we are failing miserably by allowing things to go on the way they're going on and not having the testicular fortitude to stand up and say, not no, but hell no. And the powers that be aren't going to do a damn thing about it unless you show them that they have to. Now, I'm not advocating for any type of violent action or anything like that, but sadly, the only thing that the powers that be understand is brute force. Again, bring your pots and pans and you can go to your demonstration and your protests and stuff like that, and they'll just sit there and laugh. That's just the way it is. And I don't apologize for saying so. Anyway, well, we're coming close to the end of the program. If you support this broadcast, well, then please do some business with our advertisers. Go to the website, TheWTFReports.com. Pick up some Get More Tank. You'll be glad that you did. Check out the Wave Watch. That thing is helping more and more people. So anyway, that said, and if you want to make a donation, we have a GoFundMe there too, And then we got the merch. Yeah, we got the coffee cups, the baseball caps, and the T-shirts and stuff like that. We need a little bit of a financial shot in the arm, folks. So anyway, that said, it's going to wrap it up for the Tuesday edition of the WTF Reports. If you're enjoying this broadcast and listening on Rumble or BitChute or YouTube, click like, share, and subscribe. And, of course, word of mouth works real good, so spread the word. That said, out of time here, folks. I'll be back again tomorrow. Until then, please stay safe, stay free. God bless you all, and I'll see you tomorrow.